And we're back for more Temtem. In this chapter we are finally leaving Tucma behind by progressing through the last area in Tucma as shown here. On my way I defeated a couple of tamers as well, and one of those tamers asked me to try and find her brother, which I then tried to do. So she referred me to a lifeguard who I met and asked about this son that we were looking for. I then went back to Zulia to tell her what I learned from the lifeguard, which wasn't much. So she sent me on another tour to find her playmate, who I found all the way at the top up here, called Chochley, who hadn't seen this kid either. So after talking with her, I went back to Zulia again, where she gifted me money for finding the other kid, at least. And then she referred me to a tracker, Tetsuayo, who is a master tracker for some reason, and he could, by just hearing the story of how I looked for this kid, figure out where the kid actually was, which is pretty insane. So after talking with him, I learned that he was somewhere in this area. So I went over there and talked with his kidnappers and pretty easily defeated them in battle. After defeating them, I talked briefly to the kid, and then I went back to Zulia and was gifted the move Footwork. After I was done with all of this, I ventured south and found out that Max was here. And Max was trying to recruit me to the Balsato clan, which I declined a couple of times. After the lengthy talk with Max, I moved on to the last area of the last area here in Tucma. After entering the house, I found out that it's kind of a border between Tucma and Kishua, and I then continued onwards to Mavingu Isles, which is the entrance to Kishua. Just as I entered, I heard that somebody was coming along, and it appeared that it was a couple of Balsato scouts. Apparently they were looking for a route to travel a lot of cargo, and for some reason they couldn't do it here because there's all these gaps where you need to use your hook rope thingy. After listening to the conversation, I continued on in this new area, where I found a couple of trainers and some new Temtem as well. I even caught a new one, a baby goat. Called Goatee. I then proceeded to the first city in this area, where I met the Resistance, and apparently I needed to talk to them for a bit before I was allowed in. When I went to the healing center, I met Musa, their leader. While talking to Musa, informing him of who I am, apparently they were attacked by the Balsato clan from inside the Jew tunnel. So I went into the Jew tunnel to help out the resistance. I found the Balsato attackers and fought them off pretty easily. And afterwards I went back to talk to Musa to tell him that everything was okay. And it turns out that Musa was actually the new dojo master for this area. So I went to the dojo with a puzzle of sinkholes and a lot of tamers, mostly focused on fire and ground types. So after going through the maze a couple of times, I finally made it all the way to Musa. Briefly talked with Musa and agreed that if I won, he would help me find Carlos. So we started our battle. Musa started the lineup with a Kareen and a Madrid. And I started my lineup with Platymouse and Sconge. And I pretty easily defeated his initial lineup, being that they were crystal and ground, and I had water and melee. His Acronox and his Mushok was a bit more of a challenge. I chose to put in Grandpa instead of Platymouse to counter the Toxic on his team. The initial hit did a bit of damage, and then I used Inner Spirit on the Acronox, which did a lot of damage. Afterwards I used Tornado on the Mushok, hoping that it would kill it, but sadly it didn't. I also hoping that Sconge would be able to hit Acronox before Acronox would hit Sconge. Sadly I was mistaken, and it killed both Grandpa and the Sconge. I then put in Platymouse and Raikan to finish off what the other two started. Used Water Blade on the Mushok, but it was not enough. Empers finished Mushok off and got some stat boosts. He then put in his 5th Temtem, which was Sconge, and I defeated his Acronox. Sconge was a bit high level, and he then sent it in his most powerful Temtem, the Yowler. I decided to focus on the Sconge first so I could overpower the Yowler. Sadly the Sconge got my Raikan, and I then decided to put in Mimit to copy out the Yowler. Almost killed my Platymouse in the process. His guns then killed my Platymouse, and his Yowler did a lot of damage to my Mimit. I still kept my focus on the Sconge. I then sent in the Sparsi, which got hit by Sconge's ninjutsu, and I used Tesla Prison on Yowler to slow down his speed. I then killed the Sconge, and then it was 2-on-1. Sadly the Yowler then beat up my Sparsi, and I was forced to use a revive to stay in the fight. So I revived Sconge, and I used a tonic on Yowler, my Mimit, and then I started hammering on the Yowler. Yowler was pretty resilient and had a lot of HP. It then almost killed my Mimit, but killed itself in the process. I then talked briefly with Musa again, and he explained that they needed help against the Belsato clan. And as we agreed earlier, I would help them by going to their location. And that was it for this video.